Marty. Yeah.
So for the video, my name is Brent Claiborne, and I work for Parks and Recreation here in Lexington, Kentucky, in the Department of Therapeutic Recreation. My supervisor is Anessa Snowden, and she's a CTRS. So what's being passed around is some pictures of our day one of our cooking class. And one of the reasons I wanted to come tonight, other than just share with you about our programs that I feel like are really good, is to thank you all and thank the Autism Society of the Bluegrass for your generosity in past years, especially this year, so that we can buy the supplies, the equipment that we need to really do a good job with our cooking class. We partner with the UK Dietetics group that's headed up by Dr. Hazel Forsyth, and she and 5 of her students are teaming up with Rebecca and Ivania, myself and Anessa, and we're putting on 2 cooking classes. This is the cookbook, and you guys can pass those around. Y'all can keep one of them, and I'll have to take 3 of them back with me. But on the roster, I think nearly 50% of our roster is made up of persons with autism. Your donations are going to help folks with autism. We've already made, the first night we made drinks, which was a really nice kale smoothie. It was good, it looked green, but it was very tasty. And then we also made some chai tea, which was very tasty, as well as a blackberry maple tea. So the UK students planned out the recipes, and we put it in this binder, and now we're trying to teach the individuals that come to cooking class, which is 19. We have 9 in the first class, and the class meets for an hour and a half, and then we have 30 minutes to regroup, and we do another class for 10 other individuals for the next hour and a half. So we have a big time. The second week, which was last week, we made a real nice chicken and some sauteed broccoli, and had some ice or gelato or something like that. I always, Dr. Forsyth always frowns upon me when I bring a little goodie toward the end, but yeah. So our other programs.
You're like a what do you call it? You're undermining her.
We're good. We're good. A little bit of good with the bad.
Undermining her health, her health plan.
So on Monday, starting up on March 14th, will be our aquatics, and that is for ages 4 and over. I was talking to Thatcher's mom, and there's 1 spot remaining. So I'm hoping if y'all aren't on our mailing list, contact me or email me, and I can get you on a mailing list, because a lot of our programs, like our horsemanship program, which doesn't start up until April, and it's for ages 10 and over, but it's already full. It's a very popular class. Some of the same folks sign up for it year after year. I'm hoping that's because they really like it and are getting things out of it, but it's one of our most popular programs, and that's on Wednesday and Friday. The aquatics, which meets at the Beaumont YMCA, is on Mondays. Tuesday and Thursday, which is kind of our core group. Jake comes to our adult fitness class. Jay Tyner comes to our fitness class, and we spend an hour. The first part of fitness is they start walking. Ivania and Rebecca have been tasked with doing a power pump routine as well as a stretchy band routine for about 10 minutes. And then this week we're going to do some floor hockey, because on March 10th is our big floor hockey game. And they mark that in their calendars a year in advance. And we play the staff of the Dunbar Center in a game of floor hockey, and it's a hoot to see. So, but they get into it, they enjoy it. The second hour of our adult fitness, we go into the 2 weight rooms there at the Dunbar Center and try to burn as many calories as possible. As most of you all know, some of our participants are easier to motivate than others. But we do our best. We have Ivania and Rebecca, myself, and another UK student, Luke, that help out with that for the supervision and make sure, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. On Wednesday, Wednesday, a couple days from now, archery is in its 4th or 5th week of archery, and they have a great time. We have, I think, 13 archers signed up for that, and it's 18 and over. It meets from 10 to 11:30 on Wednesdays. We've got all kinds of abilities that come to archers. We've got one young lady who uses an adapted archery bow, and all she has to do is get the safety off and pull a trigger as if it was a gun to shoot at the targets. And we try to come up with creative things to shoot at. We have the traditional targets, but last week we were shooting at Vanderbilt, Florida, LSU, and the SEC tournament. Does the remaining because sometimes we put paper over the targets and shoot at balloons. And this week we're going to shoot at the food pyramid, or my plate, and we're going to say what do you need to get to. So we're going to kind of do a little teaching of nutrition while we shoot. So also, Ivania and Rebecca. Ivania is probably the lead teacher for Everybody Dance, and that's on Thursday. What am I missing? Wednesday, after we do archery, we clean up archery, and then move over to the distribution center for our cooking class. Take care of those 2 cooking classes, and then on Thursday we do another fitness class, and then Ivania and Rebecca teach a class, Everybody Dance class, at the Bell House. And last semester we had a lot of guys taking the class, and now the guys have jumped ship from Everybody Dance class to a Zumba class, which Ivania will be teaching. So we have a lot of girls in. There's one boy one gentleman that's taking dance class, but I don't think he's coming back because he's the only guy in the class. So he might take the Zumba class. We're going to see if he wants to take the Zumba class instead. The Zumba will start up March 23rd, and that'll be during the day, 10:30 to 11:30.
Is that on Thursday?
Wednesday.
Oh, it'll just take over the archery time?
The archery slot, yes ma'am. So, and it's an hour class. The Everybody Dance class, which Ivania is teaching, will have a finish up with a recital on May 7th at the Opera House, which will be...
It's going to be 2 shows. The first one is going to be May 13th, which is a Friday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And then the second show is going to be March 14th at 2 p.m. and both at the Opera House. And the tickets cost $5. Okay.
So that'll be a real nice deal. Bowling starts up this Saturday at Southland. 2 things have changed about our bowling. It's going to be at Southland, and instead of 12:30, it's going to be from 1 to 3. So, and that's noted in what I gave you. The Bluegrass Miracle League will be coming up in April, which coincides our fitness program. And then on the back of this sheet, our spring dances, we were going to try to do it at the Bell House, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing it at the Carver Community Center because of space and bathrooms. I think Anessa needs to talk to her supervisor to get the final green light, and you all will be out. We'll get the word out some way, Facebook and through mail and emails to make sure everybody knows about that.
Is Carver on Patterson Street?
Patterson Street, yes ma'am.
What's wrong? Are they, Tate's Creek is busy or what?
Tate's Creek was booked, yes.
They usually have the dances.
Right. So
Is Miracle League that you do on Thursdays is for adults, but then the Miracle League for,
Tuesday.
okay.
Tuesday. It's
Tuesdays,
for
but then they also have Miracle League for kids who are
on Saturday.
under 21 or
Right.
19 or 20, right?
Right.
It's Saturday. Does anybody else know when? I don't know when that one starts.
It usually starts the same week.
I think it does start the same week because a friend of mine whose daughter has, I always say one, cerebral palsy or cerebral, whichever one. That's what she has, and he's coached that for several years. And I've just seen it on Facebook, but I'm almost positive I saw, and the dates seem to be the same.
Kevin Orey with the YMCA would be he's our
Sarah
contact.
usually puts that on the listserv. I just don't know because Amelia's over.
Right.
She's an adult. So.
Right.
But I was thinking it's baseball for kids with
That's really fun if your
disabilities.
kid would like to be on a team or anything. they make it a lot of fun. They, you know, announce the kids' names and they play the little music and do the, sometimes they'll do the Star Spangled Banner, take me out to the ball game. It's
a lot of fun.
And then a lot of times they'll have little cookouts afterwards. So it's, my son did that, and now he's doing it as an adult. But we hated kind of giving up our Saturday one because it's kind of a big family thing.
So day trips, we also do day trips once a month. Last month we went to Eastern and enjoyed a Mexican lunch, and then went to the planetarium at EKU and saw some stars and some other another little short program that EKU put on. Next month in March on the 18th, we're going to the Capitol and taking a Capitol tour, and probably eat lunch prior to that. So, and then in April, we're going to Keeneland. We usually try to, Keeneland's so very, very generous, and they give us some tickets for the fall and spring meet. So we usually take a really good group out there. So, and that's on this as well. So, that being said, that also summer camps, the signups I think will be in April, and we're going to do 6 weeks this summer. We have camps for 5 to 12-year-olds, 13 to 21-year-olds, and then I oversee the camp for the adults, which is 22 and older. So the younger kids go to Castlewood Park and they swim every day, and the 13 to 21-year-olds go to Woodland Park and they swim every day if the weather's good. And then the adults do a little bit of everything. So we do a variety of stuff. So, yes, ma'am.
The camps, is it like 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, or is it one day a week, or?
No,
the
Monday
first
through
one?
Friday, yeah. So I think it might even be 7:30 to 5. So yeah, it's 8, it's around that. Yeah.
Is it, I can't remember, is it in a, what, is it 6 weeks or 2 weeks, or what's increments? I think you have
It's in
sessions,
1
right?
week, 1 week increments.
Okay.
Yes. So,
One other question,
Yeah.
since I didn't know about this stuff. Is this the only time that the aquatics is done? And so like when the May 9th ends, it won't be offered again until like sometime in the fall
fall
or
and
something?
spring, yeah.
Okay.
Right. And this was sent out in December, and our signups were in January. So, and then
I
we'll
mean,
sign.
that's fine, you know,
Yeah, I was
that's
just-
my own fault for not
No, I
doing
know.
more research, but.
Right. Well, and my number is on here, and my email address is on here, so any suggestions, we just recently had a participant, parent, caregiver type meeting to give suggestions or any comments. So if you all want to do that through an email or call me, would welcome any suggestions or other times. This time's terrible for my schedule or whatever, and we'll try to accommodate. Anything. Thank you all so much for the grant money, for the cooking class, and thank you so much for letting me come by and share with you a little bit about our programs. So, and feel free to call.
Well, I was gonna say, I was just gonna make a comment that Amelia has participated in therapeutic recreation programs for many years, and I think they're very helpful and useful, and, you know, so all the different, it's good to, like, she likes to swim, and even though it took her a long time, but she can swim in the deep water now and not drown. And I mean, like 18 years. She can swim in the deep water and not drown. So.
Well, thank you all for any other questions, or y'all feel free to shoot me an email or call me.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you, Brent.
All right. Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start talking. You go ahead, Mel. Let me give her. Do what? Can you pause it for a minute? Sure. They have an annual conference. The ARC of Kentucky is, from my perspective, it's really a cross-disability organization. We have a local chapter, but this is a great conference, so I wanted to let you all know about it if you didn't. It's going to be in March in Louisville, and There are a lot of sessions, well, it's across the lifespan, so it's not just adults or children, so I just wanted to let you know about that. And then my friend and colleague Hope Lee Dittmeyer is sponsoring an amazing training series, and in March, some of these topics may also be of interest to you, and it's not just for professionals. Any of these folks would be great for families to hear from, or for families to hear them speak. So I also wanted to pass that out. If you don't mind being my runner, Lisa, just take those back there. Sure. If you got an extra one. John O'Brien is really a pioneer in really establishing a really strong conceptual framework for supports and people living in the community, working in the community, and is just a really great speaker. And the other two folks are going to be talking about individualized supports, and then David Petoniak has a very significant, I guess, history of helping understand people with challenging behaviors and ways to be more responsive to that. So those were just some things I just want to let you all know about. So I'm going to talk, Melanie asked me to talk about the ABLE Act, but I want to talk about that in the context of overall financial, I guess, thinking, planning. So let me ask you, what do you all know about the ABLE Act? What is it that, do you all know? What do you know? What are you excited about? Zero? Okay, well, good. Good place to start.
I don't know anything about it.
What do you know about the ABLE Act? Have you ever heard of the ABLE Act?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
I actually I went to the ARC National Conference and took a class on it.
So what did you learn about it, Sherry?
Well, I actually learned quite a bit. I mean, I actually took some classes on the trust and just different parts of it. Like,
Okay.
basically they were talking to us about the difference between the trust and the ABLE Act and vice versa, and how much you could save, and, I mean, I would have to go back to my notes.
Well, that's
to get
okay. I've got a
specifics.
chart for you, actually. I've developed a chart.
Right. That's,
About
I mean,
that.
it was like telling all the differences.
All the differences. Okay, well, that's good, because I think that's really important. I think if the only thing you get from tonight is that there are a variety of tools, and the ABLE Act is one, but it's not the only one, and to understand it, and I think it can serve a certain need, but not all the needs. How's that? And ultimately, you have to have money for any of it. So I like to start out with just thinking about, a foundation. And actually, this to me is a good way to think about financial planning. That there's, like with a house, you don't start with the roof. You start with the foundation. And so the foundation for a financial plan really is, you need an emergency fund. So depending on who you talk with, anywhere from 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but I would go for at least $1,000. You start somewhere. In other words, so if your car needs new tires, you have cash, so that there just needs to be money readily accessible to pay for unexpected expenses. And then a will is actually there under foundation, because none of us knows how long we're going to live, and so a will can help make sure you're protecting those that you love and making sure that whatever you have goes where you want it to go. And then the foundation of the house actually are protection products. So if something were to happen and you or if your spouse couldn't work anymore, where would the income come from? And so disability insurance helps to pay for that. Some employers provide that, some don't. Some people buy it on their own. But in other words, if you have all these financial aspirations and all of a sudden you can't work, then obviously you can't meet those other financial obligations. And then life insurance. So again, if something were to happen, you were to die, spouse were to die, or mom dies, dad dies, whoever. At some point we will all die, but to really be thinking about what would happen to my family if something happened to one of the parents. So in other words, before you start thinking about the ABLE account, to me those 4 things need to be thought about. And then I've put ABLE account on this kind of on the same level as thinking about saving for college, saving for retirement. And really, I would really rather put ABLE account up on the next level, but I couldn't figure out how to do that on this slide. I just wasn't quite clever enough. But when I come back, and actually I would put college education and ABLE account up on the next 2 windows. So if you can just kind of go with me, they'd be on the next 2 windows, because you can't borrow for your retirement. I mean, kids can borrow to go to college. And the ABLE account, there may be money that your child, him or herself, will receive that could go into the ABLE account. But in other words, just in terms of having your own priorities, if you can't kind of pay your own bills, then probably it doesn't make sense to be putting money into an account for your child. if you don't have those other things taken care of. So again, that's my opinion, you don't have to take it, but that's kind of how I think about this. So again, show me the money, kind of got these things are really important in terms of just making sure that you can keep body and soul together, and then planning for your own future. As I said, you can't borrow for your retirement, and then this is something nobody likes to think about, but in fact, people are living longer. Have any of y'all had experiences with family members, grandparents? Okay, so does it cost money? Or does it cost time? I mean, there's, whether it's,
But
Sure,
nursing
but-
home and long-term living and assisted living, and how you gonna take care of them? It's a lot.
it's a lot, Sherry, it's a lot. I mean, it really is. So that's also part of your own planning. How are you gonna pay for that? Or are you gonna move in with your children? I mean, it's part of, just because we live longer. So that's just something I would encourage you to be thinking about, whether you're saving, well, probably none of us can save enough, but really if you want to look at long-term care insurance as part of that, because it can derail your retirement pretty quickly. Nursing
Well,
home,
it takes their house, I mean, I'm taking care of an aunt, and I mean, her house was wiped out in like no time with assisted living.
that's
I mean,
right.
You know, I mean, she still has money, I mean, but she's going through it like just nothing.
So I'm going to encourage you all, because you're young enough and healthy enough, really in your 50s, you really ought to look at buying some long-term care insurance. That'll just be my suggestion. I wouldn't buy that if I don't have any life insurance. I'd buy
But
that
I mean,
first,
she was
but
financially secure well, but,
it's very costly.
but she, I mean, she's just wiped all of that out.
And there's a
quickly.
really good, I can't get online here, but if you want to write it down, it's just called longtermcare.gov, I think. Or just Google it. There's just a really great website on what is long-term care, how much does it cost. You can look at Kentucky. But you know, the average, I mean, nursing home care is anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Assisted living can be around $3,600 to $4,000 a month. So it's just it's just something we don't like to think about, but it really is an important part of one's long-term planning. You can buy it through the university, Patty. It's group policy. In fact, you could probably even buy it not even when it's open enrollment. And then I just encourage you all as family members, some of you have children, some of you have young adults, but I just really think you will do your children, you will serve them well if you prepare them to be an adult.
Could that be done at EKU as well?
Joe, I don't know. You might just want to check with your HR. I mean, with UK, it's through this ancillary, it's through I forget, MPG sells it outside of the university. They're approved by the university to come in and tell you about other products you can buy outside of the university's kind of cadre. But you could check with your HR person.
Okay, because I think UK and EKU actually use the same insurance company.
Well, there's a broker. They use a company. Yeah, anyway.
And there is a veterans benefit, because she would have been eligible for the veterans benefit, but by the time we
You have to
took
spend
over
down her
the-
money.
By the time we took over her and knew she was in the shape she was in, you know, she was too far gone, and they thought maybe she wouldn't live, and she would have had to have the benefit already taken place 3 years back.
Gotcha.
So she could have been getting this benefit like way in advance. So people need to know about that too. If their husband, you know, or spouse has been in the Army, they can have this benefit all along, drawing like $1,200 a month.
I think you have to spend your money down, though. Pretty sure you have to have limited resources to qualify for that benefit. At least that's presentations I've heard.
Well, now, when I checked into it, I mean, she could have kept her house, and then they got that with her
Got that.
Social Security.
But you're right. The point being is that you need to plan. Your
Right.
point's well taken. You need to still plan. But just in terms of work, some of you all, your young adult children are working, or you hope they will be working, but work can really just make a huge difference, not only in terms of self-esteem, relationships, and they can still keep their benefits unless they earn an awful lot of money. Then they might have health insurance on their own. So, okay. And then so actually, you could be saving now. Okay. I mean, if you have $5,000 that you're just dying to put somewhere for your adult child, and you work, you could be saving. I mean, you could go open a mutual fund account in your own name and Social Security number. You could have a savings account. Your estate plan needs to make sure that if you've done that, you want to make sure that money goes into that for your child. Those things are not tax advantaged, but I mean, you got money, go invest it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Because you need to know tonight, there is no place to open an ABLE account right now. I mean, they're not available yet. And actually, I don't know that anybody knows exactly when they will be available, hopefully sometime later this
They
year.
actually passed the legislation.
But even if they passed the legislation in 33 states, Wendy, there's still nobody
Well-
opening ABLE accounts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, somebody
But
has to open
Kentucky,
them.
did they actually?
Well, I'll share with you what I know. There's still, somebody has to open them. And I think until maybe all the federal regulations are out, some of the dust settles, but in other words, there has to be an entity
Bank,
somewhere, or a bank, willing to open them. The other thing you could be doing, I mean, actually, if you think your child's going to go to college or go to some post-secondary option, you could open a 529 plan. It's an excluded resource. In other words, if you really think your child is probably, able to go, maybe vocational school, post-secondary, go for it. That's a tax advantage. I got that on the wrong side. Because a 529 plan, the funds grow tax-free if they're used for qualified educational expenses.
Can I ask, can you explain what a supplemental needs trust and why somebody would need one for younger people who haven't?
Well, a supplemental needs trust is because if you die, Wendy.
Well, no, I mean for a person with a disability.
Well, this is for you.
Oh,
This is
okay.
you. You could have been saving. You,
I need a
mom, dad.
I need a supplemental needs trust too?
You need one for you need one for Amelia.
Oh, I know, that's what I'm saying, like a special
Right.
needs trust, but I'm saying
But
people
it
who
goes
have
in
young
your
children
name.
who haven't done futures planning may not know why you need one, or.
Well, I'll get
That's
to
all.
it. I just want to say that if you do that, you'd want to make sure that the money in those accounts goes into that account. That's what I was saying there.
On the 529 plan, on the college plan, okay, if you put the money in there, and let's just say they get to the age of the college, and then they decide that they're not going to college.
You can change the beneficiary. So if you have another child, you can change it to that child. You can take the money out, but there's just taxable consequences.
Okay, so you don't lose the
You don't
money.
lose the money. No.
Can you-
There's going to be tax. There's going to be taxable. It's after-tax money, but the gain, there's probably a penalty, Sherry.
Okay.
But you can change the beneficiary. So if you start with child A and that child doesn't go, you can change to child B to child
Does
C.
Have to be college, or can it be any kind of?
I said post-secondary. It's post-secondary.
So it could be vocational school.
Could be
I just want to
Vocational
make
school.
sure, because my first one's in college already. He's going to be on the master's. That's no problem with that one, but my second one's in the other hand, so. If I
Well, and
put
again, it's
the money
better to
in there,
start
I
when
just
they're
wanna make
young.
sure.
It's really better if you can start when they're about 3. You know.
I've got him a savings account, but it's just not in a 529.
And you may or may not want to do that. A 529 doesn't give you accessibility. A 529 plan is what the ABLE accounts are based off of, okay? ABLE legislation's under the same IRS code. It's just going to allow distributions for something different. But a 529 plan is really designed for savings for post-secondary education. And and the money grows tax-free as long as when it's taken out, it's for what's called a qualified educational expense. So that will include tuition, books, and I'll get to this in a minute, but I'll say it a couple times probably. So a qualified educational expense, tuition, books, maybe a computer, not your spring break to Daytona. Okay? That will not be a qualified.
It does cover, housing.
Room and board,
Cool.
exactly,
Thank
Lisa,
you.
exactly.
Does it draw more interest than, like, say, a CD?
Depends on how it's invested, Sherry, but yeah, ideally the 529 plan, the reason to do it young is it's going to be invested. You work with a broker, again, there are companies who sell them, Kentucky actually has one, and TIAA CREF is the company that you can open it through, the Kentucky Savings Plan Trust, I think is what it's called. American funds, so the idea is, yes, it would be invested so that it would grow, but there's no guarantee. So there's no guarantee, like, pay attention, the stock market's been a little, so it depends on your risk tolerance. 529 plans are typically designed that the investments are more aggressive when your child is young, and as your child gets older, they become more conservative, so that you're less likely to perhaps lose money as they get closer to the time where you're going to want to take it out. But that's going to be a thing for you to answer on an ABLE account too. Once we know who will open them, will the money be invested? But that's kind of the whole point of having a tax-advantaged account, isn't it? Because the savings grow tax-free. You could have a Roth IRA. If you work, and I don't know that any of you all make more than $183,000 to $193,000. If you don't, then you could have a Roth IRA. Now you could put $5,000 in. Steve could put $6,000 in. Steve can't too because you're over 50. I just happen to know that. Yeah. So I'm just saying, if you really got money burning a hole in your pocket to save, because the wonderful thing about a Roth IRA is, again, it's going to grow tax-free. You can take the contributions out without a penalty. Hi, Hazel. It can be invested. And if your child doesn't need the money, then it's yours to maybe plan a big trip to Europe when you get to be 59 and a half. I'm sorry, it's $5,500 per parent, $6,500 to 50 or older. So just know that you don't have to wait. If you've really got money, that you've got everything else taken care of. You got your emergency fund, you got life insurance, you've dealt with all of that stuff. Just know there's some things you could be doing. I mean, I've met a family, they didn't take my advice, but they were 30, they had a child born with Down syndrome. They had money. If they could have opened a Roth IRA by the time, all right, so 29 and a half, their child's 29 and a half. If they had kept doing that for 29 and a half years, do you think they would have had a nice chunk of change?
Yes.
That they could now do whatever they want to with it? It's nothing about qualified distributions. You can spend it any way you want to, on yourself, on your child, you see? So Roth would really give you the tax advantages and actually a lot of freedom to do what you want to with the money. Now you all know about this thing about resource limits. That's why the ABLE Act and supplemental special needs trusts are awesome. They're going to allow people to accrue money, or they allow you to put money aside or to leave money on the benefit of your child and not jeopardize their eligibility for Medicaid. A couple could have up to $3,000 if both are eligible for benefits. But I do want you to know it doesn't mean, your child can have something. Have stuff, have medical devices and adaptive equipment. Term life insurance, which I don't think would be really of much use, or a cash value policy as long as it's owned by someone else. They could have a home. Funds and ABLE accounts once they can be opened. One automobile per household. Some burial funds, again, you can set up prepaid. That's actually something I really encourage families, probably your children are really young, but all the folks that I've been in a power of attorney guardianship role for are in their 50s and 60s, and so I've already done all the pre-planning. So the gentleman I was a guardian for died on, a woman that was sharing his home with him came in and found him dead at 52, went to bed that night, was dead the next morning, just died of sleep. I just called Highlands Funeral Home and it was all taken care of, all paid for. So
When you say it's owned by someone else, does that mean they're the beneficiary?
they could be.
Or
But see,
would
you
they
could have
pay
three
for
different
it?
people. Usually the owner pays for it, Wendy, but you could be the owner. How about this? You don't have the same person as all three. Typically the owner owns it and is the insured and somebody else is the beneficiary. But you could own a policy on your children.
Okay.
You could be the owner, they're the insured, and then you can be the beneficiary. Then the cash value belongs to you
So we can have life insurance on Amelia that I pay for.
if you own it.
I don't know what that means.
That means the contract's
I'm
between
paying
you and the
for it.
insurance, but actually the contract's between you and the insurance company.
Okay.
She's the insured.
Okay.
She's the insured.
Right, okay,
She's
I
not the
understand.
owner.
So that would be, for, heaven forbid our child died before us.
But it could happen.
It
Right.
could, and that's one of those things that you really don't wanna think about. I don't care if I kick the bucket, but, is that what, with the term life and the cash value? Well, my husband wouldn't do a cash value. Anyway,
This would
so
be-
we would get an insurance policy on Austin in case something happened to him.
But term won't work for him, Lisa, because why would you buy a term policy for a child? Because
That's why
you
I
wouldn't.
think I'm confused
You
about
wouldn't.
this.
Well, term.
So if I have Rob and I have a term life insurance policy. We just got the increasing benefit rider paperwork last week. So that one doesn't apply to me because I've already covered for that. Is that kind of right?
I think I'm confused.
I think I'm confused.
Well, in other words, you and your husband have life insurance on one another, and I'm assuming that's really good, because something could happen to either of you.
Correct.
If you want something for your child, then you have to determine, insurance companies don't write term for less than $100,000. Why would you want $100,000 on Austin?
I don't think she's
That's what-
telling you to get insurance. I think she's just saying,
You're allowed.
if you have it, it's not counted in your resources. Is that why it's on this
That's why it's up
list?
here. If you have, well, it's really the child. In other words, I'm talking about your family member with Medicaid. It's conceivable
Right.
somebody might have a term life insurance policy because they had one and then they became disabled, let's say Patty. But term life insurance is an excluded resource because there's no cash value.
Okay.
But there are families who have bought $25,000 of whole life insurance on their children because they want it regardless of when their child dies, right?
Okay.
So if, as long as you, Lisa, own that, or your husband owns it on your son, then there's going to be cash built up in it. It doesn't count as a resource for him because you own it. You own the cash in it.
Because the only reason we could ever think to get, since he just turned 25, and so as an automatic included rider on our term life policy, he's no longer covered. And we really debated, well, should we keep him there, should we pay it a little bit, because if, heaven forbid, you know, he gets hit by a bus, but at the same time, that's why I have an emergency fund, you know, if I have to, heaven forbid, if I have to bury my child, then.
That you may be able to cover that.
Yeah,
And at some
yeah.
point, at some point, one suggestion is just to think about doing just pre-planning. You pay it off.
Yeah, and that's.
You do it, it's done. So you can,
And that works for if, hopefully, things go like they're supposed to, and he outlives us, and then.
right. But it is just prudent at some point to make those arrangements, because most likely your children will outlive you. And how will that be paid for?
Exactly.
Because it's not a billable service. I mean, first of all, they're dead, but I mean, it's not something the government's going to pay for. And it's not something your adult child can arrange for themselves, right?
Right.
Okay, I mean, your other children, they're on their own, right? I mean, they'll just have to figure it out. But your child with a disability, that's not something he or she can figure out. So at some point, probably need to take some kind of steps to have something in place, whatever that is that makes sense to you and to your budget and to their budget as well. Property essential self-support. That's if somebody has their own business. You all may be familiar with Trent Altman. I don't know if you know, Trent is a young man with autism, really successful artist in his own right. Well, all of the things that are part of Trent's business don't count against him for purposes of Medicaid eligibility. Okay, so that's part of his business. So the business can own, I think they, at least one point, they did have a trailer, and they would, you know, take his art to St. James Fair and had a tent and all those things, so those things wouldn't count. And then resources held by a special needs or supplemental needs trust. And then something called PASS, which I won't go into, but it's a work incentive to help people to be able to save some money in order to achieve a vocational goal. So I'm going to pass around now just really a comparison between the ABLE account, first-party special needs trust, and third-party supplemental needs trust. And Joe, if we can just give you several to go that way, and Rebecca, if I can give you a few to go that way. I misspelled signed. It wasn't singed into law. It was signed into law.
Singed into law.
Singed into law. It was signed into law. See, that's where the spell check won't help you, will you? Because singed is a word. Okay. So it was signed into law, federal law, well over a year ago. And again, it's in the same part of the IRS code as those 529 college savings plans. So it creates a new section called 529A in the IRS code. And then you can get really good information about it at the ARC.org, and then the National Down Syndrome Society also was very, very active on the national level. I'm sure there were groups around autism too. Those are just the two that I'm most familiar with about it. So just know that people can have both. So the ABLE accounts, when they become available, would provide eligible. Now eligible, the key word here is people's, and this would for your children, they're going to be eligible, because their disability occurred before the age of 26. But we all know people whose disability occurred after the age of 26. Acquired brain injury, maybe had a stroke, were in a car accident. So part of that eligibility is the disability has to occur before the age of 26. So it's going to provide the same types of tax advantage saving tools that all other Americans have through college savings accounts, health savings accounts, and individual retirement accounts. In other words, the money, which is why Sherry most likely, you would hope you would invest it, because you get this tax-free savings, assuming that it grows in terms of the investments. But there is a $100,000 limit, of course that's a lot of money, for someone to remain eligible for a cash payment for SSI. And then you actually could save more, whatever the 529 limit is for your state. And I think in Kentucky, well, it's over $200,000, and still be eligible for Medicaid. But people could still, now obviously, and really truly, nobody knows how they're going to work yet. I mean, actually, how they're going to work, how you're going to access the money once you put it in. I think there's lots of hopes about you'll have to access the money, and I don't know, Sherry, if you heard anything different, but I mean, as far as I know, we don't know how it's going to work exactly. Now, obviously, a person who receives SSI and Medicaid can have a bank account. So it's not as though your son or daughter can't have a bank account right now. It's just how much can they have in it, right? It's not like they can't have one at all. And it's just that it can't exceed $2,000. I mean, the total amount between, let's say, if there's a checking and a savings. So you could save for some small things. The wonderful thing about the ABLE account is it would allow people to save for big things. If you want to save for a car, if you want to save for a down payment on a house, if you want to save for something related, I don't know, maybe LASIK surgery.
I was saying a piece of computer equipment.
Exactly, a piece of computer equipment, right, exactly.
Yeah.
It gives you the ability to do that. A young woman has spoken out on behalf of the ABLE account, and I just don't know if I really don't know what I did with that. I had one more handout, and evidently it didn't get put in my little stash here. But Amanda Stahl has her master's degree in social work. She is a woman actually with cerebral palsy, works, and when her adapted van breaks down, I mean, she doesn't have the ability to save to buy a new one, really. I mean, might get $1,000, but if you really want to try to get $5,000 or something to get a good down payment. So the ABLE account's going to be awesome once it's going to be available.
She can't borrow either, right?
Well, I don't know why she couldn't. I think you could borrow, Lisa. I'm not sure, because the money wouldn't stay in your account if you borrowed it and then dumped it gave it to the car dealer.
I haven't ever looked into it.
And the tax can be owed, but I wouldn't really worry about the tax on a savings account, would you all? I mean, it doesn't make any money, so I wouldn't worry too much about the taxes on it. And it is immediately accessible. Again, I don't know how the ABLE account's going to work, but obviously with a savings account, you just go get your money, right? You know, it's there. So, kind of comparing, again, college savings plans again, because they're in the same tax code. And ABLE, by the way, stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience, which I think is really awesome. So again, 529 is a tax advantage way for parents or grandparents to save for a child's post-secondary education. And again, we talked about qualified distributions a little bit earlier, but as I would point out, you know, your spring break in Florida wouldn't be a qualified distribution from your 529 plan, okay? So I'm going to make that analogy to what I think will be the case with ABLE accounts. So tax advantage way for people with disabilities or family members to save for a person's qualified disability expenses. Now, I have what those are listed here. So I guess I didn't bring that. Do you all, qualified disability expenses include things like housing, education, transportation, employment, personal assistance, financial management, assistive technology, health and wellness. I think you could use this to join a gym, to join the Y, probably. I think those are the categories that are coming to mind. And I guess I just didn't bring that one handout, and I'm sorry. But I don't really think it would include fun. In the same way that the 529 plan doesn't include the spring break to Daytona, I think if what your child really wants to do is to get season tickets to the Reds game, what do you think?
Buy money your savings.
I don't know, that could be socialization and therapeutic recreation.
I mean, between you and the
Social
IRS,
skills
how's
training.
that? How's that, Wendy? You know?
If you have to learn social, how to function
I'm
in a
just
social
saying,
setting like this.
I think there's a little gray area around fun, you know?
And you're
I mean,
not sure what the
Well, they're
reporting
not-
requirements are?
Well, my
gonna be?
understanding is what will happen, Patty, is let's say you've got one for Jake and you take out $1,000 and the IRS, you gotta save receipts for what you spend it on. So if the IRS decides to audit you, you need to show the receipts for what you spent it on.
Right.
So I guess I'd suggest you buy a scanner,
So it
because those
shouldn't
receipts fade.
Shouldn't be a trip to Disney World.
Well, that would be my opinion.
Okay.
That would be my opinion. Well, think IRS. Okay, the IRS is saying, Wendy, Amelia, right? You can, you're not gonna pay taxes on the gain. So am I gonna let you take that money and go to Disney World? What do you think? I just don't think that's how the IRS thinks. Now, yes, Amelia, you want an iPad. Absolutely. And then you can have fun on an iPad, right? I mean,
Right.
but it's also for communication. It also has other, you know,
Or to buy a car to drive to
or to
Disney
buy a
World.
car, maybe, yeah, that's right, well, you can buy the car and then you can go to Disney World. So, but it really, so that's, just would be the thing to think about, you know, in terms of, and again, I'm telling you what I think. We don't know yet, but I'm thinking, well, I mean, if you think about how the IRS thinks, okay? Again, you're gonna get a tax advantage savings. I just think that it's gotta be for qualified disability expenses, and everything I've read, it does talk about enhancing quality of life. I will say that, the language is in there, so maybe you could make that case. A trip to Disney World will enhance my son or daughter's quality of life, and see what the IRS says, but if they disagree, you're gonna be penalized.
Because you mentioned like YMCA getting, you know.
Oh, here they are, I'm sorry, here they are. I do at least have them in the slideshow. Those are what the law says are qualified disability expenses. So actually, I don't even see recreation at all. I was wrong.
Education.
So those are the categories.
Well, I remember when we worked with an advocate to get Austin's SSI, and she said, if we take a family trip, that his SSI should cover his portion of the trip. And so
Yeah.
he would buy a tank of gas, and so, I mean, that's why I see that as, he lives with us, he can't live on his own. So if we're gonna go, well, like this weekend, we're going to Virginia to see so.
But SSI is different than this, okay? SSI is
So
a
that-
cash benefit that's coming to him, Lisa, and it's primarily for food and shelter. So
Yeah.
all the things you just talked about are food and shelter, okay? This is different. This would be an account that's set up, you know, you're putting money into it. The IRS has said the money can grow tax-free. Okay, so it's not the same thing.
That's gonna come down to the accessibility as well.
As well, exactly. So I just think it's I mean, I'm just saying, that's what the law says. That's what the federal law says. And really, in the regulation, they didn't get any more specific about that. So, it just doesn't mention recreation, so I was wrong. Although I think you could argue that somehow a gym membership would really help your health. So I mean, I think I'd take the risk. I might take the risk
Education
there.
and medical, you might.
I might be able to take the risk there, because there's a lot of wellness,
Yeah,
you know.
The programs that we offer is under therapeutic recreation.
Right, so I mean, I'm just saying, I would think you possibly could justify that. Just know that going into it, you may not have any further clarity. But again, I'll just come back to, kind of my original thought is, show me the money. I mean, where's the money gonna come from?
Well, that's why I was talking about with transportation for our family. That's kind of included. You know, my son is in Illinois, my daughter's in Virginia, we're here. So to see his immediate family requires travel. And so.
So transportation's in here.
Yeah.
So transportation's
So
in
that's
here,
what
so I would think
something like
transportation
that should-
is probably
should count.
fine, should
Yeah.
count. I don't know if right, I guess
Yeah.
between you and the IRS, how's that? Between, not me, between you and the IRS. Able accounts for supplement, not supplant, benefits that are provided through private insurance is the Medicaid program, SSI, the beneficiary's employment and other sources. A person can only have one ABLE account. So grandparents can could give your son, this is the wonderful thing, grandparents could give your son or daughter money and then that can go directly into the ABLE account. I think that's awesome. Or if they get graduation gifts, or they get a scratch-off ticket at the lottery. I mean, I don't know. But that it really is their money. I think that is really awesome. So gifts, or if they have money, they work, and it's hard to stay under that resource limit, then they can put the money into the ABLE account. And know that it can be established with any company or state that's opening them once they open them. The federal law said you could only open an ABLE account in the state where you lived. That got changed in December of last year. This home state rule no longer applies, which is why the legislature here in Kentucky, and I can give you that, the legislation is pretty simple. It's basically just saying that if people open ABLE accounts, here we go. This is I think the most recent, here we go, Joe, if you can send that around. Sure. The Kentucky legislation. Kentucky right now will not have a program. We have a new treasurer. There have been work hoping that the state treasurer would be willing to house a program. However, the new treasurer is not so sure because there's no money. There's no money to start anything. You may have noticed our current governor is really fiscally conservative and actually has significant cuts on the docket. So this legislation, at least if people have ABLE accounts, would exempt it from other means-tested programs. And they're going to be looking at the state treasurer, the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, the Commonwealth Council on Development and Disabilities, and there's a fourth person who are going to be looking at how Kentucky might have a program.
Do you think they're gonna get around to voting on it this time?
I think they will. Here,
So
I've got
this
the
is
most
the
recent
current
email. That's the current
legislation.
legislation. This is from February 24th. There's also a House bill that's passed the House. So anyway, it's Senate Bill 179. So here's some recent information. If you're interested, you can contact Mary Lee Underwood. There's a Kentucky ABLE Coalition Google group. So if you'd like to stay apprised of what's going on, let her know. The DD Council is managing that. Here, Joe, if you can be my,
Yeah.
if you'd like. And there's also a Facebook page.
I usually post it on our autism page too, most of these updates.
Well, good.
I post it on the Facebook.
So people should contact their representatives. I mean, certainly, we really hope it passed. I think it'll pass. Wendy, I'm only optimistic it's gonna pass. There's no money.
Well, I just know sometimes they get distracted.
But I know the
In
House bill's
Frankfurt.
it's already passed in the House,
Right, it's up to them.
and it's in the Senate now. And because there is no money, it's gonna feel good. Why would you not, but you're right, it has to get through the machinations.
Let me ask you something. I've heard that we can go to Ohio and get the ABLE account already. Is that correct?
Well, to my Sherry, I haven't called Ohio. I mean, Ohio has passed legislation. It's whether or not, who's opening them. In other words, there are 33 states or more that have legislation. You have to have an entity that will open the account. And
Like a bank or something
a
like
bank
that.
or a mutual fund company. An American Funds does a lot of the 529 plans, a TIAA CREF. Are there banks in Ohio that are opening them? But you're right, if they're opening them in Ohio, I would imagine you could go to Ohio. You don't have to wait till Kentucky passes this legislation. If there's somebody somewhere opening them. Now, I emailed Chris Rodriguez with the National Coalition for the ABLE Act or whatever and asked him that question, is anybody opening accounts? Back in December, he said he didn't think they'd be opening till the fall. I emailed him before this meeting and I haven't heard back from him. And that was over a week ago. So if you find out that there's some place where people can open them, let people know.
Right, I had just heard that. I don't,
Against, you have to go somewhere to open them. And it's not the same thing as opening a savings account, because there has to be some documentation of disability, or you have to, the entity that's going to open them has to have certain forms that you're going to, under penalty of perjury, if your child doesn't get SSI or SSDI, qualify. So I mean, it's not the same thing as just going to a bank and showing an ID card. It's more complex than that. States also have to report. There's reporting requirements, so it's just more complicated, or even just probably opening a 529 account. So these are people who are eligible based on if they receive SSI or SSDI, or they can submit some kind of certification that meets the criteria. I think what happened in December was basically they're not asking whoever it is that's going to open them to get all that paperwork. They're going to ask you, whoever's opening the account, again, to certify that you have documentation. If your family member doesn't meet the first criteria. And again, the individual's disability has to occur before the age of 26. So again, anybody could contribute. And again, you only have one account, but anyone could contribute to it, including the person with a disability. But understand that the most that could go into an account, and actually that amount's the same for 2016, is $14,000. So it's up to whatever the annual gift tax exemption is. So that's why, if you go back to this chart right here, why there's still a need for other vehicles. So for example, a first-party special needs trust account. There are folks who get settlements of well over $14,000. So they enable it. You would need something. So I did want to let you all know about Life Plan of Kentucky. Some of you may know. I don't know where Patty. But we have a pooled special needs trust here in Kentucky. It's here in Lexington, actually. Karen Perch, who some of you may know, is a really wonderful estate planning attorney, and Karen has been involved. Got three there?
No, oh yeah, I do.
Joe, if you can help me again.
Sure.
Karen actually functions as the executive director, and I'm on the board. We've been around since 2000. We started in 2011, opened our first account in December of 2012. And the majority of our accounts, frankly, are first party. In other words, the person with a disability has too much money to qualify for Medicaid for some reason. They either have inherited money, they have gotten some kind of a settlement, or they have gotten some kind of a return from Medicaid for something called patient liability. And so money goes in, and then requests are made for distributions. And then again, you can save up to $100,000 in an ABLE account. Did you all not get one? I am so sorry. So it would be the person's money. So if that happened to your family member today, all of a sudden grandma dies and has left your son or daughter $20,000, and you can spend, you can't open an ABLE account today, but even if you could, you can only put $14,000 into it. Does that make sense? So just know that the first party special needs trust could be helpful.
I mean, if we had this kind of money,
That's right,
which
Lisa.
I don't.
Well, if Austin,
But we could put $14,000 in there for 9 months straight. If I had it,
No, you can only put it all for the year. It's 14,000 for the year.
could save up to 100,000.
Yeah, so it'd be 14,000 for however many years to get up to 100, including whatever
Okay,
gains there are.
okay.
No,
Okay.
it's 14,000 a year max.
But we can put 14,000 in this year and next year, for
Right.
however many years, as
Right.
long as, but if we got close to 100,000, we need to start pulling out or stop putting in
Right,
whatever.
that's correct.
Okay, okay.
That's correct. Because it's 100,000 including whatever gain there is on
Right.
the money
Right.
that's in that account.
Hoping there's a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
That's right, that's exactly right. Or you have money, he has money, grandparents have money, but the total can only be up to 14,000.
I don't play the lottery, so probably not gonna happen.
And that's 2016 too. I just haven't changed the slide.
No.
It's the same amount for this year as well. But just know that any assets remaining in an ABLE account upon the death of the person must be used to reimburse the state for Medicaid payments made on behalf of the beneficiary. So that's just something to think about, Lisa. You know, I mean, in terms of how much money.
I don't have a problem with that, because there's people
That would
that's
need
just
it.
me. It's-
So if you die and there's $80,000
If
in there.
Amelia dies,
Well, I'm saying the person with the disability dies, and there's $80,000 in the account, then the government can recoup that money.
if they spent $80,000 on her, since she opened the ABLE account, yes. And I mean, I would agree.
Yeah.
But that's how- but just know that there's-
I didn't have, it wasn't out of my pocket if Medicaid paid for it, so, but that's, some people would just, whatever.
Well, just to know that. How's that?
It's
Just-
good to
just
know.
that people
Oh,
would want
yeah,
to
you
know
need to know
that.
that going in.
And that would be true of the first party accounts too. That's why it's excluded as a resource. It's excluded as a resource because Medicaid has the ability to recoup or to recover some of that funds when the person dies, if there's any money left in there. So I think those are just the folks who have been involved in trying to get the act passed here in Kentucky. And with the DD Council, Mary Lee Underwood has done a great job. That's some of the highlights. I also have another typo there. But I've just given you the legislation, so.
What do you mean when it says it was going to be housed in the treasury? You mean
Well,
like who's responsible
yes.
for administrating
Because the
it?
federal legislation says for a state to have a program, it has to be housed within state government somewhere.
Some
Like
office.
like ASBG couldn't run it.
Right.
There has to be some state office, some state entity. So right now, there's this substitution amendment, and that's passed the House. So again, I don't think we know. So I think I've told you all that. So I don't know if I can answer any other questions about it. I did bring just some other information about kind of planning for the future. Because I would say this, Lisa, or just all of y'all to understand, you can't leave a portion of your estate to an ABLE account. So it's not an estate planning tool. It can't be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. It can't receive a portion of your home. Does that make sense to you?
Unlike a special needs
In other words, you
trust.
still need a third-party supplemental needs trust for anything you would want to leave for your child when you die. It's not the ABLE account. You might specify that you want so much money to go into the ABLE account every year, if there's still money available to do that, so that Jake would have more direct access to it. But it can't be the beneficiary. It can't be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. It can't receive a portion of your estate, if there's an estate to receive a portion of. So again, just in terms of your tool belt, it's a tool, but like any tool belt, you got a hammer, you got a Phillips head screwdriver, you got a regular screwdriver, they don't all do the same thing, right?
Good analogy.
So that's my analogy here. You might need all three, but you probably need at least two. To me, you need a third-party supplemental needs trust for anything that you want your son or daughter to have once you're not here. And then, depending on how much money there is and what you want the money to do, either a first-party special needs trust or a ABLE account. I think that's it. So that's why I gave you a file folder, was to put all this paper in.
Oh.
That's why I gave that to you. I wasn't really clear about that, was
No,
I?
I was like,
That's what the file folder's
when you
for.
gave me the folder, I was like, this is empty.
Yeah, but it's empty, and so now I wasn't clear about that, Wendy.
Now I know.
So now you have stuff to put in it. I guess I have one more thing. Actually, Sarah emailed me that maybe Karen and I may do this here, but right now we are going to do a free kind of half-day seminar in Louisville after the ART conference. And actually, Laura Butler is going to speak about supported decision-making, which is a way to think as an alternative to guardianship. So I'll just send back 5 this way.
This little talk that you're gonna give
And Louisville.
Wait, now when is, what day?
It's the Saturday after the art conference.
Oh, okay.
And we're doing it in Louisville because hoping if folks came for the art conference, they might be willing to stay.
So we were talking to you about doing it.
About maybe doing it here.
In the fall, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, we haven't gotten set dates or anything.
That's what we talked about at our board meeting.
Yes, she has sent me an email.
We might do it in the
I think
fall.
we're counting on it.
Well, that'd be great, but I'd like different space. I'll just say that right off the bat.
You don't wanna be here?
I don't want to be here.
We probably, sorry, I got it.
Well, if we're going to do it for 2.5 or 3 hours, we just need different space.
We'll probably do it.
We would.
Yeah, Cardinal Hill would be great,
Cardinal Hill,
Sherry.
yeah.
Their learning center would be great. Joe, I think you can turn it, bye.
Bye.